Hello, Lynette here. I've been watching the European situation very closely these last couple days. I believe that we are seeing a cosmic shift in the universe right now. I know, it's very dramatic, but I really think that we're seeing something that hasn't been seen in Europe for a long time, and that is where A happens and B happens and causes C to just explode. And that is the yellow vests in France. I believe it's more than just a upset populace about rising taxes. I believe that they are bordering on a social revolution, if not already there. It's grown bigger and bigger for 3 weeks, and the Macron government, their answer to it in the last couple of days has been not to speak to the yellow vests, but to figure out a way to put up bigger and better barricades to prevent them from, marching and causing damage. So the government is just putting its head in the sand. It's really bad. But the good news about this is that the French brothers and sisters across the channel, the British, are having their own march on Sunday, on the 9th. And it's a Brexit March, and it's led by UKIP, whose person and the leader of the party is Gerard Batten. He's quite marvelous. I really like him. He's not terribly aristocratic. You can tell by his accent that he's a little bit more of the people. And so the march is going to happen, start at the Speaker's Corner, which is that old time-honored tradition place in London, start at Whitehall, where people would come and they could espouse their views and either talk crazy or talk sense or politics or social issues, whatever. It's been around for a really long time. I meant to look it up, but I didn't. And the march is going to be making the point that Brexit is Brexit, and the vote in Parliament, which is happening on the 11th, has got to do what the people said 2.5 years ago. UKIP is a kind of a splinter party, and they are, if you look at Wikipedia, which of course is owned by Google, which of course is the devil, they're called an extreme right-wing party. And the UKIP supporters, people that belong to the party, are likened to the hicks and idiots and farmers and boot-wearing, snooze-chewing, beer-drinking lowlifes that are Trump supporters, which of course is crazy. And the party is, they recently, Gerard Batten hired as a consultant Tommy Robinson, and you might be familiar with that name. He has made a huge name for himself in England with this enormous following, and he's put in prison for 4 months for a completely bogus charge. He was put in solitary for most of that time, and he came out of prison looking like a skeleton. They treated him so badly. It's just hard to believe that the British would do this. And it was for some scammy thing about contempt of court. And it was eventually thrown out, but not before he suffered terribly in prison. So Tommy, because in his youth belonged to another party that was, there's two parties that are verboten. One of them is the BNP, the British National Party, and the other one's the EDL, the English Defence League. And if you look those up on Wikipedia, they're called far right and right wing, and the EDL is called Islamophobic, which, as far as I know, a dictionary really shouldn't be putting these subjective descriptions on something, but anyway, there you go. So Tommy and his youth belong to one of these parties, and UKIP has in its bylaws that if you belong to one of these, there's probably a couple other ones, you can't be a member of UKIP, which is strange. They're the only party in England that has this restriction. Gerard Batten could give Tommy Robinson a waiver, but people are his co people in the party are saying, let's not do that till after Brexit. Let's settle down here. So he's hired Tommy as a consultant because Tommy has what his area of expertise is the terrible Islamic extremist problem that England has, the UK. And Also, specifically the groups in the prisons. Because there's so many Muslims in England, it's really kind of horrendous. Their prisons are full of these people. And let's say if you had 100 Muslims in the prison and 20 of them were just crooks that happened to be Muslims and 80 of them were hardline extremists, those 80 will try to groom and turn into jihadis these other 20. And because they don't separate them, they just keep them all together. And he's spoken a great deal about this. And of course, the left says, oh, you can't be putting people in separate places. That's discrimination and all the crazy stuff you can imagine that they said. One of the good things that comes with Tommy is he has several 100,000 followers on Facebook. Now, there's a thing that is called the GDPR, and I had to look that up to see what that is. It's called the General Data Protection Regulation. And I'll give you $5 if you guess who made that up. If you guess the EU, you're right. They just did it in May. And so this is one more way to quash things like Facebook and YouTube and freedom of speech. They put it under another, called a cow a pig, and said, oh no, this is for data protection and privacy. But that's not it at all. It's for their use for restricting this stuff. So because of this regulation, Gerard Batten and the UKIP party aren't allowed to use their Facebook. They have hundreds of people on Facebook that follow them, but they can't send out invitations to this march to those several 100,000 people because it would be breaking this regulation. No, I know, it's so bad. Somehow Tommy Robinson has gotten around that with his Facebook. He's also being helped by Rebel Media, which is a Canadian YouTube news source. Very good. They've been really active with him, trying to get him out of prison and supporting him and funding him with his lawyers and whatnot. So somehow they've gotten around that. So Tommy Robinson brings to the table several hundred Facebook people that they will be able to tell about this march. So this thing could conceivably be hundreds of people telling the British government, you have to do what Brexit is because that's what we meant. It'll be marvelous. So much is depending on this vote. So the vote in the Parliament then will be on the 11th, and they will vote on the deal that Theresa May already last week brought to the EU. And the EU looked at her new plan and said, oh, this is marvelous. You've given us everything we wanted, and we don't have to give you anything. And you give us 38 billion pounds, and you lose your vote in the EU. This is perfect, Miss May. And that's what she's going to try to get through her parliament. So, if it passes, the UK is toast. It's gone. And so, I hope that, what I'm hoping is that the British people look across the channel and look at the French people going, you know what? They got a more fiery temper than us, and they like to burn things more than we do, and they probably dusted off a few guillotines while they were at it. Which is more than we want to do. But by golly, we're going to get out of our, wool jackets and caps, and we're going to do something a little bit extreme too, and flex our muscles. And that's what I hope they do. The biggest issue with Brexit is immigration. The far fringe on the one side wants cheap labor for business. That's what they're after. Bring it all in here and we can pay them nothing, and that's all good. People on the other side, or like our liberals, they're saying, no borders, let the world in because there shouldn't be any borders anywhere and it's all free and easy and what doesn't even matter. And it just leaves the British people in the middle going, these are really bad ideas. So let's pay attention to what's going on over there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.